Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the AM Report for HAPS News, the network of now. I'm your host, Alex Mahajer, and it is Tuesday, November 24th. And this morning, after months and months of biting our fingernails and hemming and hawing and wondering the question that's been sort of rippling throughout the country since the election season started, what will happen if Donald Trump refuses to leave office? This morning, finally, we have at least some answer that he will leave office. Trump acknowledging his election loss, sort of, yesterday. I'm going to be joined this morning by Rance Collins. He's the editor-in-chief of 800 Democrat to discuss the beginning of the Biden transition, Trump's concession-ish, and we'll discuss all of today's top headlines. All of this and more on the AM Report. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the AM Report. I'm Alex Mahajer, and I'll be joined in just a moment by Rance Collins, editor-in-chief of 800 Democrat. But today, first, today's top headlines. We've got a lot of quick headlines to cover this morning. 20 days after Election Day, the GSA Administrator Emily Murphy has finally cracked under pressure and authorized the Biden transition to begin after the Michigan's Board of Canvassers voted to certify their election results yesterday. This authorizes a bunch of federal funding to begin. The transition can now officially begin, and the country breathes a sigh of relief. So we're looking forward to seeing some more cabinet picks. But what we already know is that Janet Yellen will be the first female Treasury Secretary. She's the former Federal Reserve Chair and has a reputation for being tough on banks. Former Secretary of State John Kerry will be the special envoy on climate. He was both were Obama era appointees, and I'll note John Kerry was responsible for the climate deal, the Paris climate deal, which Biden has projected he will re-enter. Alejandro Mayorkas, a Cuban-American immigrant and former Deputy Secretary of Department of Homeland Security under Obama, is also rejoining the administration. He's the pick to become the head of the Department of Homeland Security. He will be the first Latino and first immigrant to lead Homeland Security, which is a big move considering all of the anti-ICE sentiment by progressives and Democrats who are calling for immigration reform. And now, more than 1 million travelers passed through airports on Sunday ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday, despite surging coronavirus cases and warnings from public health officials about the risks of private gatherings, especially as we enter this Thanksgiving weekend. So the world is now approaching 60 million cases, with more than 20% of those cases right here in the United States. Everybody, please wear a mask, stay safe. The more people become infected, the higher the chance that you too will become infected, even if you are in a place where you believe you are safe. So please be cautious and careful, wear a mask. We're going to have a Thanksgiving dinner here at my mom's house with just my mom and me and my sister outside. So if you have to congregate, be separated and distance from one another, and with the people that you're already inhabiting your private residences with. So I'm joined right now by Rance Collins. He's the editor-in-chief of 800 Democrats. Let's see, Rance. And he is started a It Takes Two campaign for the Georgia Senate races, which he is working very hard on. I'd like to welcome Rance Collins. Good morning, Rance.
Good morning. It's Let's Take Two, not It's Take Two. It Takes Two is a movie with the Olsen twins from the mid-90s.
How could I be so stupid? Yes, Let's Take Two. A very catchy slogan. Rance, we have finally, after long last, we've got a signal from Trump that he will leave office. Yesterday, the General Services Administrator Emily Murphy, who had refused to ascertain the election for Joe Biden and holding up plenty of federal funding to begin the transition, which, as we know, is a huge undertaking and requires a great deal of time, effort, and money. She finally cracked under pressure and wrote a letter to Joe Biden stating that she would ascertain that he is the winner of the election and to begin the transition. I think that. What are your initial thoughts right there about Emily Murphy's letter and the announcement yesterday?
I mean, first thought is about time. I mean, we've been waiting for 15 days since the announcement was officially made, called by the networks that Joe Biden was going to win the presidency, and it took them that long to initiate the transition process when it happened within hours several years ago, whenever Trump won the election and Obama authorized that transition. So, yeah, nice, Emily Murphy. It took you long enough to get to this point. We're very excited to see that you've got it on board with reality with the rest of us. Although not really, because she never actually refers to Joe Biden as president-elect in the letter. She says he's the apparent winner. I love how it's still the apparent winner when he literally could lose any of the states that Trump is still trying to put frivolous lawsuits into, and he would still be the president if he lost one of those states, any one of them. There you go. But regardless, it is the closest we are probably going to get from the current administration. And could you say that again? I lost you for a second. Alex? Am I live, everybody, or did I just lose? Or
Yeah,
we just lose Alex?
Yeah, Rance, the letter from Emily Murphy.
Yes, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. I lost you for a second.
Nope, I'm still here with you. The letter to Joe Biden says that as the administrator, she basically. Oh, sorry about that. So the letter that she wrote to Joe Biden sort of was also very defensive. She writes, quote, "Contrary to media reports and insinuations, my decision was not made out of fear or favoritism. Instead, I strongly believe that the statute requires that the GSA administrator ascertain, not impose, the apparent president-elect." She also says she did not receive any direction to delay her determination or any influence from the Trump administration to delay the decision, but she complains in the letter she received threats online, by phone, and by mail directed at my safety, my family, my staff, and even my pets in an effort to coerce me into making this determination prematurely. This woman deserves all the public scorn that she is receiving. She purposefully worked to circumvent democracy and was shamefully doing so in direct contradiction to what is now decades of standard practice when it comes to this transition and her role as the GSA administrator. She was definitely imposing her political will, and I'm glad that she finally caved under pressure. Now, Rance, a lot of people are saying that this decision came because of the Michigan Board of Canvassers voting yesterday to certify the election results, which really eliminated all of Trump's avenues to victory. What are your thoughts about that? And was it Michigan's that broke Emily Murphy, or do you think she caved under pressure, public pressure?
I think that it was probably a combination of the two things. She was catching daily flack for delaying this, as she should have been. And certainly Michigan voting probably was an easy out for her in a way, to point to something other than pressure as a reason to finally call the election. But I don't really think there's an excuse here. We've had a projected winner since Saturday, November 7th, and nobody with a brain cell has disagreed about who the apparent winner is, except for people on Parler and Emily Murphy. So I'm pretty sure, honey, that this should have happened a while ago. Thank you for finally getting on board so that we can protect the national security of this nation. because I mean, goodness. But you know, that's kind of what you expect, that kind of partisanship out of the Republican Party these days. It's a shame that we don't have the kind of unity that created peaceful transitions during previous presidencies, even under the most contentious of circumstances, like 2000, when it took forever to determine who the winner of the presidential election was, and yet we still had the peaceful transition, even if it did not go on as long as it should have, and might have caused some harm in how long it took to get there. So it's a shame that we don't. It's a shame that we don't have an administration that's going to allow for that to happen, because this is probably the closest that we are going to get to a concession out of the current administration. You know, Donald Trump's tweet last night, trying to say that he was the one who directed Emily Murphy to do this. That tweet is probably the closest we'll get, because I don't think we're going to see him at the inauguration. I don't think we're going to ever get any type of speech or letter. I think he's probably going to declare that he's going to be the new president. I mean, he's going to run for president again in December. I think that everything he's doing is a plan to raise money and squeeze as much out of people as possible.
Absolutely, Rance. Absolutely. We got a lot of comments this morning. Peter Bittner says, hi, Rance. And people are just chiming in with an award, with awards. Daniel Goff. Thank you, Daniel. If you're enjoying the broadcast, if you're enjoying the stream, please give us an award midstream, and we will read it live on air. Leave a comment so we can know what you're thinking and bat around with you during the broadcast. So, Rance, here's the other thing about what happened yesterday is that Trump tweeted.
And now there's two Alexes. It does take two after all.
So Trump tweeted yesterday that he was. It was sort of a concession. It was a little bit confusing. He tweeted right after the letter from Emily Murphy saying that, you know, he was authorizing her to let the transition start, and that he was doing it for the good of the country. He wasn't exactly conceding, but he was acknowledging that he lost in his own way. Did you see the tweet? We can pull it up right here. He's basically saying that he wanted this abuse of Emily Murphy to stop, and so he was authorizing the initial protocols to begin out of love of country, which is just sort of laughable, but that he's continuing to wage, quote, the good fight. What are your thoughts on Trump's reaction to this?
I mean, as the people watching just heard me say while you were taking a hike, I I think this is the closest that we are going to get to a concession speech. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this, because this is what's going to be repeated for ages as the great moment where Trump conceded the election. This is it. There's nothing else coming. He's never going to admit he lost this. He's always going to blame something.
Yep, I think so too. Rance, where can people find 800 Democrat and support your work in these upcoming Senate Georgia races?
800 Democrat can be found. We have a very active Facebook page. If you go to 800 Democrat, it's the number 800 Democrat. That's where the majority of the activity happens for us these days. You can also follow us on Twitter, and I am on Twitter as well at Rance Collins. And if you'd like to donate to our campaign to help John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock win Georgia, you can go to letstake2.com. That's let's take two, spell out the word two, the number 2.com, and donate whatever you are able. That does help us out tremendously so that we can do some great work to bring about change in Georgia. Thank you.
All right. This has been Rance Collins, editor-in-chief of 800 Democrat. I want to thank him for joining. I want to thank Daniel Goff, loyal viewer, for all the awards this morning. We'll be back tomorrow morning and keep you all posted. Thank you, Rance, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Thank you.